Hey folks, this is Tim McCarthy here with the 2018 Wicked Local Highlights. We're kind of spotlighting some of our best work throughout the year right now and through a series of podcasts, articles, everything like that. I am here today with the man, the myth, the legend, Wicked Local North of Boston photographer David Sokol. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tim. Thank you for having me.
How could I say no to spending some quality time with you? So we're working on a little feature right here. I asked Dave to kind of go back through his archive throughout 2018 and kind of find some of the shots he really appreciated, both for multiple reasons, really, like kind of artistic value, photography things. So quality. See, I know big words occasionally. But what I wanted to reach out to you, Dave, was just mind introducing yourself to folks. Some people may have already dealt with you and they don't even know it yet. But
sure. I grew up in Wakefield. I've lived in Massachusetts my whole life. I started as a freelance photographer back in 2000. I worked for a couple local small newspapers. And that really got my foot in the door. I got to learn a lot about the business, and I got to meet a lot of new people. I started at a community newspaper company, which is now Gatehouse Media. That was in 2004. I came on staff, and I've been on staff ever since.
It's the 14 longest years of your life.
It's gone by quick, and it's been incredible, to tell you the truth. There's been a lot that I've been able to witness, and it's been like a front row seat to the North Shore.
All right. And yeah, so I was just about to say, for folks who don't know, like on a typical assignment, you shoot we may only see, a schmucks in the editorial department may only see like 5 or 6 photos, but you guys are out there, you're typically shooting like at least like 30 or like jumping between multiple ones or things like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sort of depends on the type of assignment. Mm-hmm. For instance, at a sports game, I could possibly shoot upwards of, 800 photos, possibly more if it's, like a big championship game. Mm-hmm. Sports photography the hit rate is slim. And it's because the action is happening really fast, and in order to get the peak moment, it helps to shoot a lot of frames. But out of all those photos, there might be, 30 really nice photos. And from those 30, you might even cut it down even more. So, typically between, 5 and 10 images per game, which is, it's a tight edit, which is always a good thing. Sure.
And speaking of tight editing, we're going to kind of run down right here these 5 photos. So let's start with our first one right here. Kind of the cut line that I had for this piece was Ryan Slattery, I believe is how you pronounce that, of North Andover celebrates with Division II High School Super Bowl banner after their 6-0 win over King Philip at Gillette Stadium in November 2018. So, yeah, you mind kind of tell me what that one is sort of about?
Yeah, every year, the high school Super Bowl football games, state championship games are held at Gillette Stadium, which it's a lot of fun for me as a photographer, and it's got to be incredible for the student athletes as well. This image was obviously after North Andover won the championship game. It was a typical celebration on the field, a mob scene of about 100 people all running around hugging each other. And in order to try to create an image that stands out and is clean and is not cluttered, it can be a challenge.
Right. You have enough heads like all grouping around. The group hug may seem like a nice one, but it seems like it's a nightmare to kind of frame properly.
It is, and because you want to see faces.
Sure.
And sometimes it's difficult to do with people moving around quickly. Mm-hmm. This image, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. The celebration was pretty much wrapping up, and I was kind of turning off towards the sideline. I was actually heading off the field when out of the corner of my eye I noticed this player just sprawled out on the ground with the banner across his stomach. It was just like a classic celebration photo. So I literally ran over to him and I stood like right over him, and I actually held the camera out like at arm's length to try to get as much of a downward perspective as possible. It was a great moment for me because it was a different type of celebration image that I hadn't actually got before. That was the first time I've actually seen a player do that, and it was nice to be able to capture that.
Okay. And why don't we move trucking right along right here to what you considered your fourth best piece this year. So we have right here, it's Cameron Law of Somerville drives the ball out of the sand trap during their match against Marblehead at the Tedesco?
Yeah, Tedesco's
Country
in
Club.
Yep.
Okay, in Marblehead.
Right.
And I was just about to say, obviously, for folks watching this at home, it's pretty straightforward, in terms of like the action shot angle of it. But why did you like this one in particular?
In terms of choosing some of my favorite images, I wanted to include a sports image. A lot of sports photography is putting yourself in the right spot. You can't necessarily say at the right time because you don't actually choose when things are going to happen in front of you. But, for most sports, it would be in front of the goal or in front of the basket.
The best time is usually when you take a break to get a hot dog or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's when, when you turn your head for half a second is when the player slides into a base and you miss it. But for golf, you think standing there the tee or the hole is the spot to be, but you have a lot of places you can move around when you're photographing golf, and whenever you see the ball go in a sand trap, at least for me, it gets me excited because there's a possibility of a more interesting image. Mm-hmm. So this was one of those cases where it was a bright sunny day and it was a lot of dark shadows. And when I noticed the ball went in the sand trap, I tried to position myself so the player would be backlit, and I knew if he kicked up enough sand that there was a possibility of creating an interesting backlit image. And with most sports photography, a lot of it comes down to luck, and he did what I was hoping he would do, and it worked out pretty well.
And one of the things I'm always kind of curious about for yourself or your fellow photographers when you're covering a game is that you mentioned like trying to get into the right position. Is that one of the challenges of like not interrupting the game? Like, is that something you've had to work on over the years of like, okay, how do I position myself just so I can get the action shot without either, ruining his swing right there or getting clocked by the ball yourself?
Yeah, for a lot of sports, it's pretty easy just to stay on the sideline and not to get too close. For golf, it's a little bit of a different situation. It sort of comes down to the golf course as well.
Sure.
Some golf courses, they just have different rules and regulations. But a lot of the times you have free range to position yourself in a safe place.
Okay, excellent. And let's open up your third one right here. This is one, it's two people are seen walking through a rain-covered window pane on Derby Street in Salem. And this one seems a little straightforward. This wasn't tied to any particular like wake or funeral or anything like that, right? No,
this was one of those situations where it was a slow news day. There wasn't a whole lot going on, but I still needed to make an image. So the issue with that on that particular day was it was pouring rain out, obvious from the image, but it was a heavy rain. It wasn't a type of rainstorm where you think you'd actually see a lot of people outside. So I wasn't really sure what type of image I was going to find.
Sure.
A lot of the times you just drive around blindly until something catches your eye. So this particular day, I was driving around Salem I was actually looking for people with colorful umbrellas, trying to position them against, a lighthouse or something.
The backdrop of the old dying mill towns kind of thing. See what you can do right there.
Right, trying to get the gray, gloomy sky with some bright colors.
Sure.
That obviously didn't work out too well, so I kind of was sitting in my car on the side of the road trying to figure out where to go next, when all of a sudden I saw a couple people walking down the street with umbrellas, and I relied on an old trick that, all photographers have some tricks that they pull out every once in a while. So I was in my car when I took this image. I was sitting in the driver's seat. I leaned over, focused on the raindrops on the window, and I just waited for the two people to enter the frame. It was a little bit of blind luck because you have to frame the image before you actually see the people enter the frame. Mm-hmm. And I only had just a quick half a second to snap a photo, and it saved me from getting wet, that's for sure.
That's one of the fun things with photography is, lining up these shots, I assume. There's a little bit of that sleight of hand kind of at work, just in terms of the audience doesn't know exactly which window pane, we're kind of looking through right here, but it creates a nice little effect just in terms of, I'm not going to dismiss Mr. Dowd's writing or anything over in Salem, but for these more generic weather stories or things like that, let you have a little bit more fun and time to just kind of manipulate it around, kind of play with it, sort of see where it goes, more than say if there's a sports story where you have to capture XYZ things, or a news story where we need these people in the shot, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of
manipulate
freedom. Yeah, I'm not really guided by restrictions. It's kind of go out there and hopefully find something and, capture it interestingly.
Okay. And now for our next one. This one's always the classic, always the fun one, and always kind of the heartbreaker when it comes in black and white in print. But so in this photo right here, we are looking at a man watching the fireworks display over Kings Beach in Swampscott this summer. So yeah, you mind kind of break it down sort of how this photo came to be?
Yeah, Swampscott always has a fireworks display, and it's great that they hold it over the ocean. This was one of those evenings when it was a very low tide. I was actually sort of hanging out towards the seawall because that's where most people were. Mm-hmm. I made some images during the start of the fireworks display, but I noticed that there was a gentleman standing all alone. He had nobody around him, but he was probably 50 yards away, or even maybe even further than that, which doesn't sound too far away. But the fireworks display was coming to an end, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna to actually make it to actually get a photograph. I decided that it was worth a chance, so I kind of made my way quickly towards him, and I actually only made a couple frames before the fireworks display ended. So it was a little bit of a gamble because sometimes you have to take a little bit of a chance, and you could miss the image. But I thought it could have been a worthwhile shot, so I got lucky on that one.
And that seems to be an example, most people, in their communities, they'll see fireworks displays. They and their friends will take their Facebook photos and their Facebook Lives. But for, trained professionals like yourself, you have covered more fireworks displays or been to more than I think most people will in their lifetimes. Is stuff like this kind of typically what you do whenever you get to one of those shows in terms of all right, I need to find a way to make this exciting again. It's almost like that thing they do in stage plays, the thrill of the first night, I think it was called, something like that. But trying to get that new shot, that new angle every time you're out of the show.
Yeah. A lot of photography is capturing moments and, capturing light as well. Fireworks display, there's a lot of light. There's a lot of colored lights, which everybody loves. So when I approach a fireworks display, I guess I approach it more from an artistic visual standpoint to try to create a graphic image. there's probably not a whole lot of moments happening. I mean, fireworks exploding is a moment, but in terms of what people are actually doing, they're going to be standing there, sitting there, watching.
Sure.
So I usually try to approach it more of an artistic standpoint to try to create a visual graphic image.
Okay. All right. And now I was just about to say, the big enchilada this year, probably one of our most viewed images, certainly one of your most exciting ones. I've seen in quite a while. You know, nothing against your other great work, but this one, though, definitely kind of takes the cake. And this one, according to its cut line right here, a crowd of people gathered to watch firefighters from around the area battle a 7-alarm fire at the First Baptist Church in Wakefield after a reported lightning strike in October. So, yeah, I'm kind of filling folks in how this came together.
Sure. I was actually home, literally in the middle of eating dinner. I had finished work for the day, went home like any other day. I had my cell phone with me like I always do. It buzzed, so I looked at it, and I saw that there was a 2-alarm fire in Wakefield at a church. My first thought was maybe it's a kitchen fire. Mm-hmm. Maybe it will be knocked down fairly quickly. Within 30 seconds, I got another text message that said it was a 3-alarm fire. So I put my food down. I literally put my shoes on and I ran out the door. Took me about 20 minutes to get there. I live about 20 minutes away. As I was driving down the street, it was like a ball of fire. It was something I've never seen before.
Could kind of see it coming from distance away when you were pulling up.
Yeah, exactly. I was very surprised that there weren't a lot of people around. I think the Patriots were playing that day, possibly. But I had free reign for a little bit. I was able to get fairly close before they blocked off the roads. I ran to the common area with a wide-angle lens to try to capture as much of the scene as possible. I got a couple photos before I was told to move back. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the images that I was able to capture. This is probably one of the first 10 photos that I took while I was on scene. I ended up moving back after a minute or so to let the firefighters get their work done.
Right. And I was just about to say, for yourself, when you're thinking about all right, this seems to be escalating, it's kind of like the 3-alarm fire, like your trip point, just in terms of...
Well, it was...
Oh, okay, now we got to hurry. Or was it just the quick time span that you're like, uh-oh, this is going somewhere?
Yeah, well, the paging system that I subscribe to, sometimes they're fairly accurate. In terms of time frame, I mean, sometimes you get a text message and it's something that had happened an hour ago, but it doesn't necessarily give you that detail. Mm-hmm. So when I saw that there was multiple text messages in a row, I kind of figured that it was happening right then and there. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, it could come in as a second alarm, but it had been knocked down like an hour ago, and they just didn't fill that information in.
And one of the things I'm curious about is you mentioned, firefighters telling you, get back, what are you doing right here? What makes covering live on the scene, just like during a fire, what's kind of like your mental checklist? I know one of the monkey paw curses about being a writer for the news industry is you think, well, I'm going to write, I'm just going to be able to just kind of tuck away, just type, maybe interact with some folks, things like that. But then you get on the scene, and it's like that sort of putting on the mask of all right, we have to go out to the scene, we have to do the photo, I have to do the story, figure out who to talk to. Obviously, it's a high stress environment for all involved, and you're kind of the interloper there, to be blunt, and trying to work among folks and try to stay out when necessary. What's that like for you, just in terms of your kind of checklist for when you're getting in there and then trying to line up the shot and all that?
Yeah, when I first arrive at a scene, it sort of depends on how quickly you get there, but
sure. Generally,
there'll be a police officer blocking the road off. I always go up, introduce myself, let them know who I am. If it's safe enough.
You usually just get a nod or a side eye, and that's typically about it.
Yeah, if it's safe enough, they usually permit me to go down, and they usually will say, stay on the other side of the road or whatever the case may be. But in terms of getting past that first barricade and getting to the actual scene, I always make sure to stay out of the way of the firefighters and the EMTs and the police officers. I stay behind any yellow line and the yellow tape. But the firefighters are usually pretty courteous. They usually let you have free reign as long as you're not in their way and as long as you're staying out of, the danger zones.
Sure.
If fires are very spontaneous, things happen quickly, things change quickly, so you can't get too complacent. You have to be aware of where you are, be aware of where the firefighters are, because you don't want to put them in danger, and you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you get yourself in danger or in trouble, because you're definitely a bystander, you're an onlooker, and you just have to realize that it's a serious situation. You just got to put yourself in the right spot to capture the image and to make sure everyone gets their job done.
Sure. And yeah, Dave, I think that kind of wraps up everything we were working on right here. Looking ahead to 19, seeing what you kind of produce. And once again, thank you so much for agreeing to take part in this today.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Once again, hope you